Marcus Chen floated in the cramped cockpit of his salvage ship, watching the debris field stretch endlessly before him. The wreckage of the ancient battle drifted in the void like frozen metal tears, each piece telling a story of violence from millennia past. His scanner beeped softly, highlighting potential salvage targets in gentle blue light. Another day, another credit, Marcus muttered to himself, adjusting his worn pilot's chair. The leather had cracked years ago and foam padding poked through several holes. His ship, the Wanderer's Dream, was old even by human standards. Most aliens called human salvage vessels scrap hunting and scrap, but Marcus had learned to ignore their insults. The Galactic Salvage Guild barely tolerated human members. They considered humans too reckless, too emotional, and too willing to take dangerous risks for minimal profit. Marcus had heard all the complaints before. Humans dove into radiation fields that made other species sick. They explored derelict ships that others deemed too unstable. They pushed their equipment past safe limits and somehow survived. Today's job site was the Kythera Expanse, a graveyard of ships from the Third Galactic War. Most salvagers avoided this area because of the strange energy readings and unexplained equipment failures. The war had ended over 3,000 years ago, but something about this battlefield made even veteran Zephyrian pilots nervous. Marcus didn't care about superstitions. Credits were credits, and he needed them badly. His ship's life support system was failing, and replacement parts cost more than he could earn in 6 months of regular salvage work. The dangerous sites paid better, and humans had a reputation for succeeding where others failed. His scanner detected something unusual buried deep in the debris field. The reading was faint but consistent, suggesting a large metallic structure hidden among the twisted remains of warships. Marcus adjusted his course and fired the thrusters, sending the Wanderer's Dream deeper into the graveyard. The wreckage around him grew denser as he approached the signal's source. Massive hull sections from ships he couldn't identify drifted past his viewports. Some bore markings in languages that had been dead for millennia. Others showed battle damage so severe that Marcus wondered how they had stayed intact this long. As he maneuvered through a gap between 2 destroyer hulls, Marcus spotted his target. A spherical structure maybe 50 meters across hung motionless in space. Its surface was smooth and dark, reflecting no light from his ship's external lamps. The scanner readings indicated it was hollow inside, but he couldn't detect any obvious entry points. "Well, that's new," Marcus said, bringing his ship alongside the sphere. He activated the magnetic anchors and felt them clamp onto the strange object's surface. The metal was unlike anything in his ship's database. It seemed to absorb energy rather than reflect it, making his sensors work harder to map its contours. Marcus suited up in his EVA gear and prepared for a spacewalk. The old environmental suit had been patched dozens of times, and he could hear the recycling unit struggling to keep up with his breathing. But it would hold together long enough for a quick exploration. He cycled through the airlock and pushed off toward the sphere's surface. Up close, the metal looked even stranger. It seemed to shift slightly when he wasn't looking directly at it, as if the surface was somehow alive. Marcus ran his gloved hand across the material and felt a faint vibration through his suit. After 20 minutes of searching, he found what might have been an access panel. The surface here was slightly raised, forming a rectangular outline barely visible against the dark metal. Marcus pressed against it experimentally, then tried sliding it in different directions. Nothing happened. Frustrated, he pulled out his plasma cutter and began tracing around the outline. The beam should have easily sliced through most metals, but this material barely showed scorch marks. Marcus increased the power setting and tried again. This time the outline began to glow with a soft blue light. Suddenly the panel slid aside with no sound in the vacuum of space. Beyond it lay a corridor that seemed to stretch deeper into the sphere than should have been possible. Emergency lighting flickered to life, casting strange shadows on the walls. Marcus stared into the opening for several long moments. Every instinct told him to return to his ship and report the find to the Salvage Guild. This was clearly technology far beyond anything currently known to galactic civilization. It could be worth millions of credits, or it could be a trap that had waited thousands of years for someone foolish enough to enter. But Marcus was human, and humans had not survived and thrived in a hostile galaxy by playing it safe. He checked his suit's air supply, grabbed his emergency kit, and pulled himself through the opening. The corridor beyond was larger than it had appeared from outside. The walls curved gently upward, meeting at a point about 3 meters above his head. The blue emergency lighting pulsed in a rhythm that reminded him of a heartbeat. Strange symbols were etched into the walls at regular intervals, glowing faintly when he passed near them. Marcus activated his suit's recording equipment and began documenting everything he saw. The guild would want detailed records of any significant find, especially one this unusual. He moved slowly down the corridor, testing each step to make sure the floor would support his weight. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the corridor opened into a vast chamber. Marcus's helmet lights couldn't reach the far walls, but he could see enough to know that the space was enormous. The chamber was filled with tall, rectangular structures arranged in perfect rows. Each one glowed with the same blue light as the corridor. As Marcus approached the nearest structure, he realized it was some kind of display case. Inside, suspended in what looked like liquid light, was a suit of armor unlike anything he had ever seen. The armor was sleek and angular, made from the same dark metal as the sphere's hull. But where the sphere absorbed light, the armor seemed to generate it from within. Marcus moved from case to case, finding dozens of similar suits. Each one was slightly different in design, as if they had been customized for individual users. Some were larger, others smaller. Some had additional equipment attached, while others were streamlined for speed and agility. At the center of the chamber stood a single case that was different from all the others. The armor inside was more elaborate, with intricate patterns etched into every surface. It seemed to pulse with energy, as if it was waiting for something. Marcus reached out to touch the case, and the entire chamber suddenly blazed with light. The chamber filled with blinding white light, forcing Marcus to squeeze his eyes shut and activate his helmet's protective filters. When the brilliance faded, he found himself surrounded by holographic figures. Tall, elegant beings with 4 arms and crystalline features stood before him, their forms flickering like old recordings. The nearest figure spoke in a voice that bypassed his ears entirely and resonated directly in his mind. "Greetings, young species. We are the architects of the void, builders of the great weapons that ended the Shadow War. You have found our memorial vault." Marcus tried to speak but realized his voice couldn't carry in the vacuum. Instead, he focused on thinking his response clearly. "I'm Marcus Chen, human salvager. I didn't mean to disturb anything. I was just looking for scrap metal." The holographic being tilted its head, studying him with eyes that held depths of ancient knowledge. "Human. Yes, we have observed your species from afar. Young, aggressive, adaptable, you spread across the galaxy like seeds on the stellar wind, taking root where others cannot survive." Another figure stepped forward, this one bearing symbols of rank on its translucent armor. The memorial was sealed until one worthy could claim the Guardian's mantle. "We had hoped one of our successor species might prove capable, but they have all grown too cautious, too civilized. You, however, carry the spark we require." "I don't understand," Marcus thought back. "What's the Guardian's mantle? What happened here?" The first architect gestured to the walls around them, which suddenly displayed images of space battles on a scale that made Marcus dizzy. Massive ships, each one larger than entire space stations, fired weapons that tore holes in reality itself. Long ago, an ancient evil arose from the spaces between dimensions. They called themselves the Devourers, and they consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty void in their wake. The images showed worlds being stripped of all matter, their substance flowing into massive, tentacled ships that defied all known physics. "We fought them for 1,000 years, the ranked architect continued. "Every species in the galaxy united against the threat, but conventional weapons were useless. The Devourers existed partially outside normal spacetime." Marcus watched in horror as entire fleets vanished into writhing masses of darkness. "How did you stop them?" "We didn't," the first architect replied sadly. "We drove them back, sealed the dimensional rifts they used to enter our reality, and created the Guardian armors to watch for their return. The cost was enormous. My people sacrificed our physical forms to power the sealing ritual. Most other species retreated to their homeworlds, exhausted by the war." The central display case began to glow brighter. The Guardian's mantle is the master armor designed to coordinate with all others. Its wearer becomes the early warning system for our galaxy, the first line of defense against the Devourer's return. "But I'm nobody special," Marcus protested. "I'm just a salvager. I barely passed flight school, and most of the guild thinks humans are too reckless to be trusted with expensive equipment." The ranked architect made a sound that might have been laughter. "Exactly why you are perfect for this role. The armor requires someone willing to take great risks, someone who won't hesitate when action is needed. Your species has a reputation for charging into danger that would paralyze others with fear. The holographic figures began to fade as ancient power supplies finally exhausted themselves. The choice is yours, Marcus Chen of the humans. Accept the Guardian's mantle and gain power beyond imagining, but also responsibility for protecting all life in the galaxy. Or leave now, and hope someone else will be worthy when the Devourers inevitably return. Wait, Marcus called out as the figures grew fainter. How will I know what to do? How does the armor work? The mantle will teach you, the first architect whispered as its form dissolved. Trust in your instincts, young Guardian. Your species' greatest weakness may prove to be its greatest strength. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of the display cases. Marcus floated before the central case, studying the elaborate armor within. It looked like it had been designed for someone roughly his size, though he suspected it would adjust to fit any wearer. He thought about his failing ship, his mounting debts, and his uncertain future as a salvager. Then he considered the architect's warning about ancient evils returning. Marcus had always believed that someone should stand up when danger threatened, even if the odds seemed impossible. Well, he said to himself, when has being human ever been about playing it safe? Marcus placed his gloved hands on the case's surface. Immediately, the container dissolved like morning mist, leaving the armor floating freely in the chamber. As he reached toward it, the armor began to unfold like a flower blooming in fast forward. The moment his fingers touched the dark metal, the armor flowed over his environmental suit like liquid shadow. It covered him from head to toe in seconds, sealing itself seamlessly around his body. Marcus felt a brief moment of panic as his helmet was absorbed into the armor's design, but then he realized he could breathe normally. Systems activated around him, filling his vision with data streams and sensor readings that somehow made perfect sense, despite being in no language he recognized. The armor felt lighter than air but stronger than diamond. When he moved his arms experimentally, the armor responded with fluid grace that made him feel like he was swimming through space. New senses opened to Marcus like flowers turning toward sunlight. He could feel the gravitational pull of nearby stars, detect energy signatures from ships halfway across the system, and perceive dimensional stress patterns that indicated potential rift formation. The armor was teaching him, uploading knowledge directly into his mind. Marcus understood now why the architects had needed someone reckless. The sheer amount of information flowing through the armor would have overwhelmed a more cautious personality. But humans had learned to process chaos and make quick decisions under pressure. It was what they did best. He flexed his fingers and watched energy dance between them like tame lightning. The power contained in the armor was staggering, but it felt natural, as if it had always been part of him. Marcus launched himself upward, passing through the chamber's ceiling as if it were made of water rather than solid metal. Moments later, he emerged from the sphere into open space. His ship was still anchored nearby, looking small and fragile compared to the forces he could now perceive. Marcus could sense every piece of debris in the graveyard, feel the radiation signatures of long-dead reactors, and detect the faint quantum echoes of ancient battles. But something else caught his attention. Far at the edge of the system, barely detectable even with the armor's enhanced senses, was a disturbance in space-time. A tiny rift growing slowly but steadily larger. The Devourers were testing the ancient seals. The war the architects had fought was not over. It had only been postponed. Marcus smiled grimly inside his new armor. Maybe he wasn't the hero the galaxy needed, but he was the one it had. And as his mother used to say, sometimes being human meant standing up and fighting even when you were scared. Time to prove that humans belonged among the stars. Marcus spent the next 3 days learning to use the Guardian's mantle, while monitoring the growing rift at the system's edge. The armor's teaching systems worked constantly, flooding his mind with tactical data, weapon systems information, and historical records of the Shadow War. Each lesson came with practical exercises that pushed his new abilities to their limits. The armor could manipulate matter at the molecular level, allowing him to repair his ship's failing life support system with a thought. It generated protective fields that could deflect starship weapons and created energy constructs limited only by his imagination. Most remarkably, it allowed him to survive in open space indefinitely, drawing power from cosmic radiation and stellar winds. But the armor's greatest gift was its connection to the network of Guardian vaults scattered across the galaxy. Marcus could sense dozens of other suits all waiting in their hidden chambers for worthy bearers. Unfortunately, he was the only one awake. The armor had been trying to activate emergency protocols for centuries, but no other species had produced individuals capable of bonding with the ancient technology. The rift continued to grow, now large enough for Marcus to see with his enhanced vision. Through it, he caught glimpses of the space between dimensions where the Devourers waited. Writhing masses of darkness pressed against the barrier, testing its strength with tentacles that existed in 17 different dimensions simultaneously. Marcus knew he couldn't face them alone. The architect's records were clear about that. The original Guardian Corps had numbered in the thousands, supported by entire fleets and the combined resources of galactic civilization. He was one man with one suit of armor, no matter how advanced. He needed allies. But first he had to convince someone that the threat was real. Marcus returned to his ship and plotted a course for the nearest inhabited system. Kepler Station orbited a gas giant 3 jumps away, serving as a trading hub for salvagers, miners, and freight haulers. If he could demonstrate the armor's capabilities there, word would spread quickly through the galactic communication networks. The journey gave him time to practice with the armor's stealth systems. The mantle could bend light around itself, making him effectively invisible to most sensors. It could also disguise its energy signature, allowing him to appear as anything from a simple human in an EVA suit to a small asteroid drifting through space. When Marcus arrived at Kepler Station, he found the usual collection of ships docked at the massive orbital platform. Zephyrian traders with their gleaming vessels dominated the premium berths, while human salvagers and Corellian miners made do with the cheaper outer rings. The station's central hub bustled with activity as crews loaded supplies and negotiated contracts. Marcus docked the Wanderer's Dream at his usual berth and made his way to the Rusty Reactor, a bar that catered to the station's less affluent visitors. The armor remained hidden beneath his normal clothes, its advanced materials mimicking the appearance of worn fabric and patched leather. The bar was crowded with the usual mix of species. Humans clustered around tables near the back, while Zephyrians occupied the elegant booths closer to the main entrance. Corellians, with their rock-like features and methodical mannerisms, sat at the bar itself, nursing drinks that would have been toxic to most other species. Marcus ordered a beer and listened to the conversations around him. The talk was mostly about commodity prices, shipping routes, and complaints about guild regulations. Nothing suggested that anyone was aware of the growing threat at the galaxy's edge. His enhanced hearing picked up a conversation between 2 Zephyrian traders at a nearby booth. They were discussing reports of space-time anomalies in several remote systems, dismissing them as equipment malfunctions or natural phenomena. One mentioned that entire survey teams had gone missing, but attributed it to pirates or navigational errors. Marcus realized that the Devourers were already beginning their return. The missing ships weren't lost to pirates. They had been consumed by advanced scouts testing the dimensional barriers. The ancient enemy was probing for weaknesses, gathering intelligence about current galactic civilization. He needed to act soon, but revealing the armor in a crowded bar would only create panic. Marcus finished his drink and headed for the station's communication center. If he could access the galactic networks, he might be able to contact the guild leadership directly. The communication center was nearly empty at this hour, with only a single Corellian operator monitoring the systems. Marcus approached the main terminal and activated his personal account, then began composing a priority message to the Galactic Salvage Guild headquarters. Halfway through typing his warning about the dimensional rifts and returning Devourers, the station's emergency klaxons began blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the facility as automated voices announced a general alert. Marcus looked up from his terminal as the Corellian operator's rocky features showed confusion and concern. "What's happening?" Marcus asked. The operator's thick fingers danced across his control panel, bringing up external sensor readings. Unknown contact approaching the station. Large mass, unprecedented energy signature. It appeared on sensors only moments ago, but trajectory analysis suggests it's been in system for hours. Marcus felt the armor's warning systems activate beneath his clothes. The mantle was detecting the same thing the station's sensors had found, but with far greater detail. The approaching object wasn't a ship at all. It was a Devourer scout. a creature that existed partially in normal space and partially in the dimensional void. "How long until it reaches us?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer from the armor's calculations. 15 minutes at current velocity, the operator replied. "Station Defense Command is scrambling patrol ships, but—" The Corellian trailed off as more data appeared on his screens. "This doesn't match any known ship design. The energy readings are completely anomalous." Marcus left the communications center and headed for the nearest emergency airlock. The station's corridors were filling with panicked civilians as the alert continued. Security teams rushed past him, heading for their assigned positions, but Marcus knew conventional weapons would be useless against what was coming. He reached the airlock and sealed himself inside, then allowed the armor to fully activate. The Guardian's mantle flowed over his body like liquid starlight, its dark surface reflecting the chamber's emergency lighting. Systems came online throughout his enhanced awareness as the armor prepared for combat. Marcus cycled through the airlock and launched himself into space. The station fell away beneath him as he accelerated toward the approaching threat. Through the armor's sensors, he could see the Devourer scout clearly now, a writhing mass of darkness punctuated by glowing eyes that existed in too many dimensions to count properly. The creature was larger than a battleship but moved with organic fluidity that defied physics. Tentacles of pure void reached out from its core, testing the fabric of space-time and leaving tears that would need to be repaired before they grew into permanent rifts. As Marcus approached, the Devourer seemed to notice him. Multiple eyes focused on his position, and he felt a pressure against his mind as the creature attempted some form of psychic attack. The armor's defenses activated automatically, creating barriers that protected his consciousness from intrusion. The scout let out a sound that had no place in the vacuum of space, a howl of hunger and ancient malice that somehow reached Marcus despite the lack of air to carry it. Other creatures answered from beyond the dimensional barriers, their voices creating a chorus of anticipated feeding. Marcus raised his hands and felt energy gather around them. The armor's weapon systems were unlike anything in current galactic arsenals. Instead of simply firing projectiles or energy beams, they manipulated fundamental forces, creating attacks that could affect targets existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The first blast struck the Devourer Scout Center mass, causing it to writhe and contract like a living shadow touched by flame. The creature retaliated with tentacles that stretched across space faster than light, but Marcus was already moving, the armor's propulsion systems allowing him to dodge between attacks that would have vaporized a normal ship. Behind him, Kepler Station's defense ships arrived and opened fire with conventional weapons. Their lasers and missiles passed harmlessly through the Devourer Scout, unable to affect a creature that existed primarily outside normal space-time. The station's shields flickered under the aliens' retaliatory strikes, energy discharges that drained power from anything they touched. Marcus realized he was the only thing standing between the station and destruction. Thousands of lives depended on his ability to master alien technology and face an enemy that had once required an entire galactic alliance to defeat. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, Marcus smiled and charged forward, energy crackling around his armored form. This was what humans did best. They fought impossible odds and somehow found a way to win. The battle with the Devourer Scout lasted 12 minutes and changed everything Marcus thought he knew about warfare. The creature fought with tactics that bent reality, attacking from angles that shouldn't exist and phasing in and out of normal space to avoid his strikes. But the Guardian's mantle had been designed specifically for this enemy, and gradually Marcus began to understand its true capabilities. The armor didn't just fire energy, it fired concentrated reality, beams of fundamental force that could affect targets regardless of their dimensional state. When the scout tried to phase away from his attacks, Marcus learned to anticipate its movement patterns and strike where it would emerge. When it attempted to drain energy from nearby space, he countered by channeling power directly from the local star. The decisive moment came when the Devourer Scout opened a rift to summon reinforcements. Marcus felt the dimensional tear beginning to form and acted on pure instinct. He reached out with the armor's reality manipulation systems and grabbed the edges of the rift, pulling them closed through sheer force of will. The scout shrieked as its escape route vanished, then dissolved into nothingness as Marcus's final attack severed its connection to the dimensional void. The creature's death scream echoed across multiple realities, alerting every devourer in the space between worlds that their ancient enemy had returned. Marcus floated in the aftermath, surrounded by the debris of the scout's partial manifestation and the grateful signals from Kepler Station. But he felt no satisfaction in the victory. The armor's sensors were detecting new rifts opening throughout the galaxy, far more than he could possibly handle alone. The station's communication arrays came alive with emergency broadcasts. Reports flooded in from dozens of systems describing similar attacks. Some locations had been completely consumed, leaving nothing but empty space where planets and stations had once existed. Others were fighting desperate holding actions against creatures that conventional weapons couldn't touch. Marcus returned to the station to find himself surrounded by representatives from every major species. The Zephyrian trade minister, an elegant being with crystalline features similar to the architect's, was the first to approach him as he emerged from the airlock. Guardian Marcus Chen, the minister said, using a title that somehow felt right despite being newly earned. We have monitored your battle against the Void creature. Our archives contain fragmentary records of the Shadow War, though we had believed them to be myths. How many more of these entities can we expect? Thousands, Marcus replied, allowing the armor to remain visible as proof of his words. Maybe millions. They've been waiting in the space between dimensions for the ancient seals to weaken. My fight with that scout was just the beginning. A Corellian military commander stepped forward, his rocky features showing deep concern. Our fleets are mobilizing throughout Corellian space. But if conventional weapons are ineffective, how do we defend our worlds? Marcus gestured to the armor covering his body. The architects created guardian suits specifically to fight the devourers. There are dozens more hidden in vaults across the galaxy, but they require compatible users, people willing to take extreme risks and adapt quickly to alien technology. The Zephyrian minister looked troubled. Our people are selected for careful deliberation and risk assessment. The psychological profile you describe is considered undesirable in modern society. Same with our military, the Corellian commander admitted. We train for methodical planning and overwhelming force, not individual heroics against impossible odds. A human voice spoke up from the back of the crowd. What about us? Marcus turned to see Captain Sarah Rodriguez of the merchant vessel Aurora's Dream, along with several other human traders and salvagers who had docked at the station. Sarah was known throughout the sector for her willingness to carry cargo through pirate-infested systems and make supply runs to dangerous frontier colonies. Humans have been taking crazy risks since we first left Earth, Sarah continued. Half the guild thinks we're suicidal, but we keep succeeding where others fail. If you need people who can adapt to alien technology and charge into battles they can't win, you're talking to the right species. Marcus felt hope stirring in his chest. The armor's sensors were already scanning the humans present, evaluating their compatibility with Guardian systems. The results were promising. Several individuals showed the psychological flexibility and risk tolerance that the ancient suits required. There's more, Marcus said, addressing the crowd. The armor has been trying to activate emergency protocols for centuries. It can guide us to the hidden vaults and help compatible users bond with the Guardian suits. But we need to move fast. Every hour we delay, more rifts open and more devourers enter our dimension. Over the next 6 hours, Marcus worked with station personnel to coordinate a galaxy-wide response. The Zephyrian minister used her government connections to provide official authorization for the Guardian mission. The Corellian commander offered military transport and logistical support. Most importantly, word spread through human networks about the opportunity to claim alien armor and fight an ancient enemy. The response exceeded Marcus's wildest expectations. Within a day, volunteer applications were arriving from human settlements across the galaxy. Salvagers, traders, explorers, and even criminals responded to the call. The common thread among all applicants was a willingness to risk everything for the chance to make a difference. Marcus selected his first team from volunteers at Kepler Station. Sarah Rodriguez was an obvious choice, along with Jake Morrison, a young salvager known for exploring derelicts that others considered too dangerous. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a xenoarchaeologist who specialized in studying dangerous alien artifacts, provided the scientific expertise they would need. The team's first destination was a Guardian vault in the Helix Nebula, 3 days away at maximum jump speed. The armor guided them through hyperspace routes that hadn't been used since the Shadow War. paths between stars that normal navigation systems couldn't detect. During the journey, Marcus shared everything the armor had taught him about Devourer tactics and Guardian capabilities. The suits were more than just weapons. They were complete life support systems that could sustain their users indefinitely in any environment. They enhanced physical capabilities, provided advanced healing, and most importantly, created quantum entanglement links between all active Guardians. Once you bond with a suit, Marcus explained as they approached the nebula, you'll be connected to every other Guardian in the galaxy. We can coordinate attacks across vast distances, share tactical data instantly, and provide mutual support no matter how far apart we are. Sarah studied the tactical displays the armor had generated. How many suits total are we talking about? 47 functional units in 31 vaults, Marcus replied. Enough to establish a basic defense network if we can find compatible users for all of them. Jake looked up from the ship's navigation console. And if we can't? Marcus was quiet for a moment, processing data from the armor's long-range sensors. Then the Devourers will consume everything in this galaxy within a decade, and move on to the next one. The Architect's sacrifice will have only delayed the inevitable. Dr. Vasquez checked the readings from her scientific instruments. The energy patterns in this nebula are unlike anything I've ever seen. It's as if space-time itself has been artificially stabilized to hide something enormous. Their destination became visible as they emerged from hyperspace. A massive structure hidden within the nebula's glowing gases. The Guardian Vault was shaped like a crystalline flower, its petals reaching out across kilometers of space. Each petal contained dozens of Guardian suits arranged in perfect geometric patterns. As their ship approached the structure, systems activated that had been dormant for millennia. Lights began flowing along the vault's surface like luminous rivers, and docking bays opened to receive them. The facility was welcoming them home. Marcus felt the armor responding to proximity to its siblings, systems coming online that he hadn't known existed. Through the quantum links, he could sense the other suits stirring, preparing to awaken after their long sleep. Soon, humanity would have its champions. The question was whether they could learn to use their new power quickly enough to save the galaxy from an enemy that had already won once before. The Guardian Vault in the Helix Nebula was a cathedral of ancient technology. As Marcus led his team through corridors that hummed with dormant power, he felt the weight of history pressing down on them. The walls displayed holographic records of the Shadow War, showing battles that had raged across entire star clusters and weapons that could crack planets like eggs. Sarah Rodriguez walked beside him, her experienced trader's eye taking in every detail. This place is worth more than the gross domestic product of most systems, she observed. The technology here could revolutionize galactic civilization. If we survive long enough to study it, Dr. Vasquez added, her scientific instruments going wild from the exotic energy readings. The quantum field fluctuations alone are beyond anything in our current understanding of physics. They reached the vault's central chamber, where 3 Guardian suits waited in crystalline display cases. Each armor was unique, customized by the original architects for different combat roles. One was sleek and built for speed, another heavily armored for assault operations, and the third equipped with advanced sensor arrays for reconnaissance. Jake Morrison approached the reconnaissance suit, drawn to its elegant design. How do we know which one is right for each person? Marcus touched his own armor, feeling its awareness extend through the chamber. The suits choose their users as much as we choose them. The compatibility runs deeper than just personality. It's about quantum resonance between your neural patterns and the armor's consciousness matrix. Consciousness matrix? Sarah raised an eyebrow. These things are alive? Not exactly, Marcus replied, drawing on knowledge the mantle had shared with him. But they contain imprints of their original users, memories and experiences encoded in their quantum structure. When you bond with a suit, you're not just getting armor. You're joining a legacy that stretches back thousands of years. Dr. Vasquez approached the assault armor, her academic curiosity overriding caution. The ethical implications are staggering. We're talking about merging human consciousness with alien artificial intelligence. The Devourers don't care about ethics, Marcus said grimly, and right now we're the only hope this galaxy has. The bonding process was unlike anything Marcus had experienced with his own armor. Each team member approached their chosen suit, and the crystalline cases dissolved at their touch. The armors flowed over their bodies like liquid starlight, adapting to their unique physiologies and neural patterns. Sarah gasped as the speed-oriented armor sealed around her. Information flooded her mind. Tactical databases, movement techniques, and the accumulated experience of 17 previous users. But underneath the data flow, she felt something else: approval. The armor recognized her risk-taking nature and years of experience navigating dangerous situations. Jake's bonding with the reconnaissance suit was smoother, his natural curiosity meshing perfectly with the armor's sensor capabilities. Through enhanced perception, he could see through solid matter, detect energy signatures across vast distances, and analyze quantum fluctuations that revealed hidden dimensional activity. Dr. Vasquez struggled initially with the assault armor, her scientific mindset clashing with the suit's combat-focused programming. But as she learned to trust her instincts rather than overthink every decision, the armor began responding to her will. When the bonding completed, she found herself equipped with weapons that could reshape matter at the molecular level. "This is incredible," Sarah said, testing her new mobility systems by executing a perfect triple backflip in the chamber's artificial gravity. "I can feel every ship within a light-year radius. The speed I can achieve. I could cross star systems in hours instead of days." Jake was examining readings from his enhanced sensors. "There are 17 more Devourer rifts opening across the galaxy. The attacks are becoming coordinated. They're establishing staging areas in uninhabited systems." Through the quantum link connecting all Guardian suits, Marcus shared the tactical situation with his new team. The Devourers weren't just randomly attacking anymore. They were implementing a strategy, creating dimensional anchors that would allow larger forces to enter normal space. "We need to hit their staging areas before they can consolidate," Marcus decided. "Sarah, you'll handle reconnaissance and rapid strikes. Jake, I need you to map their dimensional anchor network. Elena, you're our heavy hitter. Anything too big for the rest of us to handle." Over the following weeks, the newly formed Guardian team struck at Devourer positions across 3 star sectors. Their first target was a staging area in an abandoned star system where the enemy had consumed 2 gas giants to fuel their dimensional generators. The battle was fierce, but brief. The Guardians' reality manipulating weapons proved devastatingly effective against creatures that existed partially outside normal spacetime. Each victory brought new challenges. The Devourers learned from their defeats, adapting their tactics and summoning larger, more dangerous creatures from the dimensional void. Reports reached the team of entire worlds being consumed, their matter converted into fuel for the enemy's ever-growing fleet. But the Guardian Corps was growing too. Marcus had identified compatible humans throughout the galaxy, and teams were being dispatched to awaken more suits. Former pirates, asteroid miners, exploration scouts, and even a few military veterans had successfully bonded with Guardian armor. Each new recruit brought unique skills and perspectives to the ancient technology. The breakthrough came when Dr. Vasquez analyzed data from a captured Devourer artifact. Hidden within its impossible geometry, she found blueprints for something called a reality engine, a massive construct that could permanently destabilize the barriers between dimensions. They're not just trying to invade our galaxy, she reported during a strategy meeting held in hyperspace between missions. They're preparing to merge their dimension with ours, creating a hybrid reality where physical laws operate according to their requirements. Marcus studied the data through his armor's analysis systems. "How long do we have?" "Based on their current construction rate, maybe 6 months. The engine requires exotic matter from at least 50 star systems to function, and they've already consumed 37. Sarah completed a rapid patrol of the Outer Rim territories before adding her report. "The good news is we've activated 26 Guardian suits. The bad news is the Devourers have started targeting our vault locations. They're using some kind of dimensional scanning to locate the ancient facilities." Jake's reconnaissance had uncovered an even more disturbing development. "I've detected evidence of collaboration. Some of the attacks showed too much knowledge of galactic infrastructure to be purely alien in origin. I think the Devourers have found allies among the current inhabitants." The revelation that some galactic citizens were actively helping the ancient enemy was almost more shocking than the original threat. Marcus felt rage building within him, but the armor helped him channel that emotion into determination. Betrayal was just another obstacle to overcome. We need to accelerate our timeline, Marcus decided. Jake, I want locations on all remaining Guardian vaults. Sarah, you're our rapid response team. Hit any vault that comes under attack. Helena, start working on weapons that can destroy a reality engine before it becomes operational. As the team prepared to split up for their individual missions, Dr. Vasquez pulled Marcus aside. There's something else in the Devourer data. References to previous reality engines, other galaxies where they've succeeded. Marcus, we're not the first civilization they've targeted. This has happened thousands of times before. Marcus absorbed this information with grim resolve. Then we're the first chance those other galaxies have for revenge. The Devourers may have won before, but they've never faced humanity. The quantum link between Guardian suits carried his determination to every active armor user across the galaxy. Somewhere in deep space, former pirates prepared to assault impossible odds. On frontier worlds, miners and traders stood ready to defend their homes with alien technology. In hidden vaults, ancient armors waited for worthy humans to claim them. The Shadow War was beginning again, but this time the galaxy had guardians who understood that sometimes the only way to win was to risk everything. The Devourers had made one critical error in their plans. They had awakened humanity's protective instincts. Marcus smiled as he prepared for the next mission. The enemy had picked the wrong species to threaten. The war escalated beyond anything Marcus had imagined when the first reality engine came online in the Vega system. The massive construct, built from the consumed matter of 3 planets, tore a permanent rift between dimensions that stretched across half a light year. Through it poured Devourer forces unlike anything the ancient records had described, evolved creatures that had spent millennia adapting to consume entire galaxies. Marcus led a desperate assault on the engine with 12 Guardian suits, the largest force they had yet assembled. The battle lasted 18 hours and cost them 4 team members, including Jake Morrison, whose reconnaissance armor was consumed while he attempted to map the engine's control systems. His final transmission provided the data needed to destroy the construct, but the victory felt hollow. Standing in the wreckage of the Vega system, surrounded by the twisted remains of space-time, Marcus realized they were fighting a losing war. For every engine they destroyed, the Devourers began construction on 2 more. They had learned to disperse their operations, making simultaneous strikes impossible with their limited Guardian forces. "We need a new strategy," Dr. Vasquez said during their emergency council meeting aboard Sarah's modified ship. Her assault armor bore scars from weapons that shouldn't exist, and her normally composed scientific demeanor had been replaced by grim determination. "The Devourers are adapting faster than we can respond. They're using quantum analysis of our attack patterns to predict our tactics." Sarah nodded agreement, her speed armor cycling through defensive configurations as she processed threat assessments from across the galaxy. "I've identified 47 reality engine construction sites. Even if we hit them simultaneously, we don't have enough Guardians to cover them all." Through the quantum link, Marcus could feel the exhaustion and growing despair of Guardian teams throughout the galaxy. They had awakened 38 suits total, but losses were mounting. Each Guardian represented hundreds of hours of training and irreplaceable ancient technology. When they died, their suits' consciousness matrices were damaged beyond repair. Marcus accessed the deep archives stored in his armor's memory core, searching for strategies the original architects had used. Most of their tactics required massive fleets and technological infrastructure that no longer existed. But buried in the historical records, he found references to something called the Unity Protocol. "There's another option," Marcus said slowly, as the implications became clear. The architects built a failsafe into the Guardian network. If enough suits are active simultaneously, they can merge their consciousness matrices temporarily, creating a Gestalt intelligence with exponentially increased capabilities. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overriding caution. "How many suits would be required?" "Minimum of 30 for basic unity, all 38 for full integration," Marcus replied, though the armor's warnings were already flooding his mind. "But there are risks. The process requires complete trust between users, and some personalities might not survive the merge intact." Sarah studied the tactical implications. "What kind of capabilities are we talking about?" Marcus shared the archived data through their quantum link. The Unity Protocol would allow the Guardian network to operate as a single entity. processing information and making decisions at superhuman speed. More importantly, it would enable them to manipulate reality on a galactic scale, potentially sealing all dimensional rifts simultaneously. It's never been tested, Marcus admitted. The original architects developed the protocol as a theoretical last resort, but the war ended before they could implement it. Over the next 3 days, Marcus contacted every active Guardian through the quantum network. The response was mixed. Some were eager to try anything that might end the war quickly, while others worried about losing their individual identities. The debate raged across dozens of star systems as Guardian teams weighed the risks against the escalating Devourer threat. The decision point came when long-range sensors detected something that chilled Marcus to his core. The enemy was constructing a master engine in the galactic core, a reality device large enough to destabilize the fundamental structure of space-time throughout the entire galaxy. If it activated, the boundaries between dimensions would collapse permanently. 36 hours until the master engine comes online, Dr. Vasquez reported, her voice tight with controlled fear. After that, physics as we know it ceases to exist in this galaxy. Marcus sent a priority message through the Guardian network. All units, prepare for Unity protocol activation. This is our last chance to stop them. The responses came back quickly. Despite their fears, every surviving Guardian agreed to participate. They understood what was at stake, not just their own lives, but the existence of every thinking being in the galaxy. The Unity protocol required all Guardians to be in the same star system for the merge to work properly. Marcus designated a rendezvous point in empty space halfway between the galactic rim and core, far from any inhabited worlds that might be affected by the process. As Guardian teams converged on the meeting point from across the galaxy, Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He would serve as the primary consciousness during the merge, the focal point around which 37 other minds would organize themselves. If his personality proved incompatible with the process, the entire network could collapse. The assembled Guardians formed a perfect sphere in empty space, their armors creating geometric patterns that helped focus the quantum entanglement fields. Marcus floated at the center, feeling the combined power of the ancient suits building around him like a gathering storm. Beginning Unity protocol activation, he announced through the network. Remember, trust in each other and in the armor's guidance. We're about to become something unprecedented. The first connections formed between adjacent Guardians, their consciousness matrices beginning to overlap and share processing capacity. Marcus felt Sarah's quick wit combining with Dr. Vasquez's analytical mind, both merging with his own tactical awareness. Other personalities joined the growing gestalt, former pirates contributing cunning, traders adding negotiation skills, explorers bringing adaptability. The sensation was overwhelming at first. Marcus's individual identity threatened to dissolve in the flood of combined experiences and memories. But the armor's stabilizing systems helped maintain core personality structures, while allowing beneficial traits to merge and strengthen. As the Unity protocol reached full activation, Marcus felt himself becoming something beyond human. The Gestalt consciousness could perceive all of space-time simultaneously, tracking every Devourer movement and analyzing quantum patterns across galactic distances. The combined processing power was staggering. They could calculate probable outcomes for millions of variables and choose optimal strategies in microseconds. Through the Unity link, Marcus became aware of the true scope of the Devourer threat. This galaxy was just one target in an infinite campaign that had consumed thousands of others, but he also sensed something the enemy had never encountered before: the unique human ability to maintain individual identity while working as a unified whole. The Gestalt turned its attention toward the galactic core, where the master engine pulsed with reality-distorting energy. Through combined Guardian capabilities, they began weaving quantum fields on a scale that dwarfed entire star systems. The plan was audacious beyond measure. They would attempt to reinforce the dimensional barriers surrounding the entire galaxy, creating a permanent seal that no reality engine could breach. But as they worked, the Devourers struck back. The ancient enemy had detected the Unity activation and launched every available force against the Guardian network. Creatures that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously attacked from directions that had no names, wielding weapons that could erase matter from existence. The Gestalt fought with coordinated precision impossible for individual minds to achieve. Reality itself became their battlefield as they rewrote the laws of physics in localized areas, creating zones where devourer weapons couldn't function and their dimensional phases collapsed into normal space-time. The battle raged across multiple layers of reality while the dimensional reinforcement continued. Marcus felt Guardian personalities beginning to strain under the pressure. Some were too damaged by the psychic assault to maintain coherence, while others were overwhelmed by the Gestalt's vast awareness. But they held together long enough to complete their work. As the last quantum seal locked into place around the galaxy's perimeter, the Master Engine's reality distortions suddenly collapsed. Cut off from their dimensional anchor points, the Devourer forces began dissolving back into the void between realities. The Unity Protocol had succeeded, but at a terrible cost. As the Gestalt consciousness began separating back into individual minds, Marcus realized that several Guardians had sacrificed their personal identities to maintain the network's stability. Their personalities were gone, absorbed into the quantum matrix that now protected the galaxy. When awareness returned to his individual body, Marcus found himself floating alone in space. The other Guardians were scattered across several light hours, their armors dormant as their minds recovered from. 5 years after the Unity Protocol saved the galaxy, Marcus Chen stood before the newly completed Guardian Academy on Luna, watching the latest class of candidates undergo their compatibility testing. The massive facility had been built using a combination of human engineering and ancient architect technology, creating a training ground where future Guardians could learn to use their abilities without risking civilian populations. The Academy's main hall displayed holographic monuments to the Guardians lost during the Shadow War. Jake Morrison's image smiled down from the memorial wall, forever frozen in the moment before his final reconnaissance mission. 7 other faces joined his, brave souls who had given their lives to protect a galaxy that many had never seen. Quite a sight, isn't it? Dr. Elena Vasquez approached from behind, her civilian clothes a stark contrast to the Guardian armor she wore during active missions. She had chosen to stay active longer than most, using her scientific background to help develop new training methods and defensive technologies. Sometimes I can hardly believe it really happened, Marcus replied, watching as a young woman from the Mars colony successfully bonded with one of the newly constructed training suits. When I found that first armor in the debris field, I was just looking for scrap to pay my bills. Sarah Rodriguez materialized beside them with the fluid grace that her speed armor had made second nature. Even without the suit active, she moved with enhanced reflexes and perfect balance. Don't sell yourself short. The armor chose you because you had what it needed, the willingness to risk everything for people you'd never met. The 3 original team members had become something of legends throughout human space. Schools taught their story as an example of how ordinary people could rise to extraordinary challenges. But Marcus knew the truth was more complex. They had succeeded not because they were heroes, but because they were human. How many active Guardians do we have now? Marcus asked, though he could sense the answer through the quantum network that still connected all armor users. 63, Elena replied. Not just humans anymore, either. We've found compatible individuals among the Zephyrians, Corellians, and even a few species we hadn't encountered before the war. The armor seems to have adapted its selection criteria based on what it learned during the Unity Protocol. The expansion of the Guardian Corps to include other species had been one of the war's most unexpected outcomes. The Gestalt consciousness created during the Unity event had somehow modified the armor's compatibility requirements, allowing beings with different psychological profiles to bond successfully with the ancient technology. Marcus watched a young Zephyrian cadet practice reality manipulation exercises under careful supervision. The crystalline being's natural patience combined beautifully with the armor's systems, creating defensive capabilities that exceeded anything the original human Guardians had achieved. The architects would be amazed, Sarah observed. They designed the armor for their own species, but it's evolved beyond their original vision. The suits are learning from each new user, incorporating the best traits of every species into their operational matrices. A priority alert chimed through the Academy's communication system, drawing their attention to the main tactical display. Marcus felt his armor activating, automatically as threat assessment data flowed through the Guardian network. New dimensional disturbance detected at galactic coordinate 77 Alpha, the automated system announced. Energy signature consistent with attempted barrier breach. All available Guardians report for immediate deployment. Within minutes, the Academy's launch bays were filled with armored figures preparing for potential combat. The response was swift and efficient, honed by years of training and experience. But as Marcus suited up alongside his old teammates, he felt a familiar mixture of excitement and apprehension. The dimensional barriers created during the Unity Protocol were supposed to be impregnable, but the Devourers had shown remarkable adaptability throughout their long existence. Intelligence reports suggested they were experimenting with new approaches to interdimensional invasion, probing the galaxy's defenses for weaknesses. The Guardian strike force assembled in deep space near the disturbance coordinates. 23 armored figures arranged themselves in a defensive formation as their enhanced senses analyzed the quantum fluctuations ahead. What they found was both fascinating and disturbing. Instead of the violent dimensional tear they had expected, the disturbance appeared to be some kind of controlled breach, a carefully constructed opening that minimized reality distortion while allowing limited communication across dimensional barriers. It's like a diplomatic channel, reported Guardian Torres, a former communications specialist whose armor specialized in quantum signal analysis. Someone on the other side is trying to establish contact without triggering our defensive systems. Marcus extended his consciousness through the armor's perception networks, studying the anomaly carefully. The construction was elegant and sophisticated, showing knowledge of both Devourer technology and Guardian defensive measures. Whoever had built it understood the dimensional barriers intimately. Guardian Chen, a voice echoed across multiple dimensions, speaking directly into his mind through quantum entanglement. We greet you, victor of the Shadow War, wielder of the Unity Protocol. We request permission to communicate. The voice was hauntingly familiar, similar to the architects who had first granted him the Guardian's mantle, but changed by millennia of separation from normal spacetime. Through the communication link, Marcus glimpsed vast structures floating in the interdimensional void, cities that existed between realities where impossible physics allowed for technologies beyond current understanding. I am Marcus Chen, Guardian Prime of this galaxy. Who are you and what do you want? We are the inheritors, the voice replied, and suddenly Marcus understood. The survivors of the 12 galaxies consumed before yours. We have spent eternal ages learning to exist in the spaces between realities, becoming something neither fully alive nor completely dead. We have watched your war from afar and are impressed. The revelation that other galaxies had produced survivors was staggering. Through the communication link, Marcus saw glimpses of their existence. Beings who had transcended physical form to become pure consciousness, living in pocket dimensions they had carved from the quantum foam. They had been fighting their own war against the Devourers for millennia, striking from hiding places that existed outside normal spacetime. The Devourers believe they have conquered all who came before, the Inheritor continued. They do not know we still exist, still resist. But our numbers are few, and our resources limited. We cannot win alone. Sarah's voice came through the Guardian network. Are you proposing an alliance? More than alliance, the Inheritor replied. Integration. Your Unity Protocol proved that individual consciousness can be preserved while achieving collective action. We offer our knowledge, our technologies, our accumulated wisdom from 12 fallen civilizations. In return, we ask for what we have lost, the ability to exist in normal reality, to touch the physical universe once more. Dr. Vasquez was already analyzing the implications. The scientific possibilities are incredible. Access to technologies from 12 different galactic civilizations, plus whatever they've developed during their interdimensional exile. We could advance our understanding of reality by millions of years in a single generation. But Marcus sensed deeper currents in the Inheritor's proposal. Through the quantum link, he could feel ancient grief, loneliness that stretched across eons, and a desperate hunger for the simple experience of existing in normal spacetime. These beings had sacrificed everything to survive and continue fighting, but they had paid a price that made the Guardian Corps' losses seem small by comparison. There would be risks, Marcus said carefully. Our technologies weren't designed for interdimensional integration. The process could destroy both our networks. Indeed, the inheritor acknowledged. But consider the alternative. The devourers learn from each defeat, becoming stronger and more adaptive. Your dimensional barriers are powerful, but they are not permanent. In perhaps 1,000 years, maybe less, new invasion methods will be developed. When that time comes, will your descendants be ready? Through the communication link, Marcus saw visions of the future. The slow decay of the dimensional barriers, new reality engines designed to bypass Guardian defenses, and eventually the fall of yet another galaxy to the ancient hunger. Unless something changed, the cycle would continue until every star in every reality had been consumed. We need time to consider this, Marcus finally replied, and we need to consult with representatives from all member species. This decision affects more than just the Guardian Corps. Time we have, the inheritor said, and Marcus sensed ancient patience in the response. We have waited eternal ages already. A few more years will not matter. But remember, Guardian Chen, the war is not over. It has only entered a new phase. The question is whether you will face it alone, or stand with those who have fought this enemy longer than your species has existed. As the communication link closed and the dimensional breach sealed itself, Marcus floated in space surrounded by his fellow Guardians. Through their quantum network, he,